Themes of world history. So, this book, History Alive World Connections, uses a big picture model. So, you notice as you go through the chapters, or lessons as they call them, but they should really be called chapters because history is a story that goes in order. You'll find that the chapter titles look more collectively at the world as a whole in its time periods, breaking it down into its individual regions in the chapters. You'll find that, or just being very broad as it is. So, historians usually begin with asking a question, then they gather evidence, such as a document, which includes a letter or the Declaration of Independence, for example, an artifact, a drawing, piece of music, and also information collected from books or interviews from people. That evidence is known as sources, and there are two types. There are primary sources, which are produced by people who went through the experience, who were in the experience and wrote about it, sang about it. Basically, their perspective, but that perspective, is what's important. Experiencing those events, and secondary sources, which are known as sources in retrospect, meaning after the fact. They were created by scholars or other experts. The point of view is the perspective. Point of view means perspective, that POV, or opinion. The Food Network defines POV as like a theme, like your theme. That's how they define POV. But anyway, Grader brings into their work. And then historians weigh the sources assessing their work. So whatever the person's bringing to what they're doing. Bias is the historians have their own opinions and thoughts and preferences. And I mean, you can't really, sometimes bias, if you really, really be picky and do the dissecting and dissecting, you can't be completely neutral, but it's not as neutral with the preferences of the historian. Chronological in time order, that sequence of events that cause and effect. Something happens and then something happens because of that. Historians really analyze, dig deep, look carefully at the little details and interpret history. They want to know the how this happened and why this happened to understand it, and also, history is about learning from the past. Historians can also bring their own point of view and their own bias and perspective into it. History is divided into the ancient, medieval, and modern period. That's how that's divided. Spatial frames, which are different geological perspectives historians apply to world events. If you take just a little bit of a region and you look at that, and then you expand, and you can see a broader view, and then so on and so forth. Kind of like those balls that get thrown around that really should be used for like you've seen those balls where you use them and you expand your voice, and your voice gets wider. That's kind of, I guess, how that would be like. So the zoom in, zoom out, those geographical perspectives. The interregional view, looking at two or more regions. Spatial frames include national, regional, interregional, and ultimately global, looking at the whole world. So now we're going to move into the themes of world history. So themes identify patterns of things happening throughout history, things in common. There are a couple broad themes that we're just going to briefly talk about continuity and change, the way things have stayed the same or altered over time. Maybe both, I don't know. And integration, people being drawn together historically, throughout history by historical factors, people that are very, very different, but they're similar because X, Y, or Z, you know, occurred to them. And the difference is really, many of the differences are the themes that we're going to get into, but mainly how people remain diverse and unique over time and from others. And you can apply these themes to the themes that we're going to get into. The first of which being cultural interaction, the way cultures interact with one another, exchanging their ideas, trading, adopting new ideas and customs, music and, during the age of exploration, that would be cultural interaction. When the food and when Europeans came over here and spread their ideas and everything like that, and a lot more we're going to get into. People have also come into battle with new ideas, and they may not like those new ideas, so they shut their doors. Examples include the growth and development of regions, the formation and spread of belief systems and philosophies, the movement and innovation of science and technology, and the influence in artistic things such as painting, music, literature, etc. So now we're going to look at forms and governmental systems. So, again, it happens chronologically from one ruler or government onto another. And of course, this is being a but to me right now. Really greatly contributes to the growth of civilizations, how people organize and govern themselves. Examples include forms of government, because obviously you have to have that governmental system, nature and growth of empires. And an empire is a large group of territory controlled by a single ruler or state. The Roman Empire, huge example. The development of nations, political revolts and revolutions, such as our revolution, regional and global organizations, such as the UN, or the EU or UN, European Union, United Nations. Society has also organized economies, from the quest of trying to find food to gaining money and financial wealth. People and societies innovate, explore, and expand, and can also cause great conflict with economic, endeavors. Examples include the agricultural revolution, the birth of agriculture, the growth of trade, how labor is organized and used, the rise of industry, the development of economic theories and their impact on people and events in the world. Social structures, the organization of societies. People form groups for their need for food, shelter, and security. Those groups form societies with their own rules and traditions to be able to function. They're very different, but they do have several things in common. And examples of this include gender roles and regulations, relations like women in society, kinship and family customs, the Medici family, racial and ethnic difference on society, social division into social and economic classes. This can also include art, history, all of which as well. Racial and ethnic differences, such as segregation, black versus whites, social division into social and economic classes. Finally, we have human-environment interaction. People are limited to the environment, and that environment impacts the natural, which impacts people's actions, and we in turn affect the environment. You can say that with climate change. It affects how and where people live, how they support themselves, fend for themselves. Um, Examples of this include the spread of disease, such as the bubonic plague, or what happened with the Native Americans during the Age of Exploration in the New World at the time. Population growth, immigration, people, traveling from one country to another for various reasons, patterns of human settlement. The environmental impact of technology as well, which is greatly affecting the environment and having major impact on life. And we're going to see that as we go through history. Thank you very much.